Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and I came across a news story that I wanted to share with everyone. It's kind of a tragic story about a young bodybuilder who died as a result of black market anabolic steroid use. So let me put on my +5 hat of weaponsmithing, work on skilling up my crafting a little bit, and let's talk about this news story. And we need to talk about this from a social perspective and the fitness world perspective, and really put all of this into context of the problem with this situation in general. And most of you know that I am not anti-gear in any way. I am pro-responsible adult use, and that of course doesn't include 19 and 20-year-olds, and that's a whole other topic in a minute. But as far as this goes, you have this story. You have a young man who had some pretty tragic stuff happen, and we can see how these things happen. You have a young man whose father died when he was still early in his teens, and that's the way his mother described it, and he didn't have a father figure in his life anymore. For most young men, that can be pretty devastating. That can make it very, very hard for a young man to find his place in the world, to know his place in the world, to figure out who in the hell he is. I mean, when you don't have a dad around or you've lost your dad, that can make your life as a young man twice as hard on so many levels. Because you don't have that role model there to teach you how to be a man. And that really is a big deal. And I mean, as much as I love women and we love our women, they can't teach a young man how to be a man either. And that's just the way it is. That's reality. So you had this young man who lost his father. And obviously he had his own issues he went through as a result of that. He ended up, as his mother said, he had gotten originally into smoking a lot of marijuana, got into weed. But when that really wasn't working for him, it wasn't really what he was looking for, he got over into bodybuilding. Now, normally it's fair to say, usually when anyone's willing to partake heavily in recreational drugs, his mother mentioning that, it kind of indicates that he smoked a lot of weed. Not just, smoke a joint once a week or something with some friends. He probably was using quite a bit if it's something that his mother noted as something he really got into. So again, that propensity to use recreational drugs is a coping mechanism, and that's why most people use recreational drugs of any type, is to cope with something going on in their life. It's looking for that escape. Even if it's just to take that a little bit of an edge off. That's why a lot of people out there smoke weed. They just want to take that edge off of whatever the hell it is in their life that's really fucked up. That's what it comes down to. They want something that just brings it down a notch, and it usually does that for a lot of people. So, he did that, and then he got over into bodybuilding, and then he hopped over, obviously, into anabolics. And they found him dead. Now there's some issues there with the police in the UK because they weren't able to fully investigate the crime scene as much as they wanted because the ambulance service didn't report it to the police properly, so they couldn't hit the crime scene initially. They lost a lot of evidence, but they did gather a lot, and one of the things they noted, he had a lot of different anabolic steroids. He had bags of powders that were unlabeled. They don't know if they were raw materials for steroids, if they were cocaine. They don't know until they test it, and they don't have info on that. But they had that, but they found a lot of morphine in his system. And that's the scary part. This is the problem we run into when we're dealing with black market drugs. All right, that's the problem you run into. Maybe he thought he was taking something else. Maybe he got morphine. He got a powder that was morphine instead of whatever. Maybe morphine got mixed into his anabolics and he injected it. Maybe his orals were actually morphine. We don't know. Or maybe he knowingly took morphine. We don't know, but the thing is, they're blaming the steroids for some reason, the autopsy reports, which means there's something happened there. There's something with some contaminated drugs that he thought was steroids or steroids that were possibly mixed with morphine. And that's unfortunate because that's what you see on the black market, and that's the scary part. That's the scary part, with the nature of the legality of these substances, it forces a lot of young people to go over to black market stuff. They don't always have the money to go see a medical doctor. They can't afford prescriptions. Maybe they don't even want it on their medical record that they're being prescribed this stuff. So due to the legal status of it, they go to the black market. And that is the majority of anabolics that people are out there taking, not coming from a medical doctor. They're coming off the black market. And that's the risk you take. Dirty products, contaminated products. Now, I don't have confirmation of this, but I did have a source over in the UK who told me that it's believed it might have been Omega Labs that he was using. That is not confirmed, though. I don't have proof of that. This is what a rumor that someone told me, and we'll leave it at that. So it doesn't mean that it was. We don't actually know. That's just a message that someone kind of in the know over there told me. Which is a well-known underground lab. Also one that there have been rumors of some contaminated products in the past floating around. But here's the thing. Here's what it comes down to. We look at the situation with anabolics and the legality in a lot of countries, and we need to step back and really assess what in the hell are we doing. With some of the stuff that we have legal, what are our concerns with anabolics? Because most of the people who are getting hurt from them, and believe me, when you look at the numbers, only a handful of people are dying from these things every year. Most of them are not directly from the anabolics. They're from unsterile drugs being injected in their body, right? An unsterile drug or a contaminated drug that's been spiked with something else. And that's what we're routinely finding are the majority of the deaths from these products. And it's actually because they're getting them off the black market. And that's the ridiculous part, is that, we have something that is illegal or a quasi-legal status due to health concerns and a legitimate concern of teenage abuse. I'm going to agree there. Teenage abuse of anabolics is something that we absolutely have to deter. I do agree on that. Teenagers have no business ever putting an anabolic into their body unless it's for muscle wasting disease their doctor is administering to them. I will never, ever, ever support teenagers, and teenagers include 19-year-olds, anyone under 21. I will never support them using anabolics outside of a hospital situation with a doctor handling it. I won't, because that is our biggest concern. The concerns are that they're going to elevate cholesterol levels, are going to negatively affect your lipid profile, which can cause heart attacks in the long term, bad cholesterol, and the concern is infertility. Those concerns of fertility and those concerns of suppressing testosterone production are much larger in still developing young men. And that is a valid concern. That's a very valid concern. But the question we get into is that the cholesterol end of it. There's a McDonald's on every street corner. Do you mean to fucking tell me that we're concerned about the cholesterol of people who lift weights and do cardio, who eat relatively clean diets, because their cholesterol profile might get messed up when there's a fucking McDonald's on every fucking street corner? Are you shitting me? We don't give a fuck about heart attacks. Heart attacks are the leading cause of death in America, and it's rising over in the UK. That is the leading cause of death. We really give a fuck if people who are healthy and work out do something that might mess their cholesterol up and increase their risk of heart attack 10 or 20%? There's a fucking McDonald's everywhere. People eat garbage all day long that causes millions of heart attacks. I mean, this is a valid concern? It shouldn't be. I mean, think about it. Statistically speaking, who's going to have a heart attack? A person who eats lunch at McDonald's every day and is 50 pounds obese and sedentary, or a person who lifts weights, does cardio, eats plenty of vegetables, eats a healthy diet, and uses a little testosterone. I can tell you statistically, observing in the real world, which of those groups have heart attacks at a much higher rate. Not the guys using testosterone. Usually the guys who have heart attacks from gear are people who are abusing absolutely enormous amounts. Way, way, way more than the average user uses of these things, combined with a shitty diet. That's the guys who you see having heart attacks from it. It's not the recreational user. But that's the point that we have. We're worrying about something like that really shouldn't even be on the radar in the grand scheme of things, because we don't outlaw McDonald's. We don't require a prescription to eat a double bacon cheeseburger and get a large Coke. That's just as deadly. That is more deadly to use chronically than testosterone is. I mean, just statistically speaking, let's be realistic. And I don't want to downplay the risk of anabolics. They are risky. You are increasing your chances a little bit of having a heart attack. If people use these things, they absolutely should follow a completely healthy lifestyle to offset those risk factors. And they need to be mature adults doing so. But we look at this from that perspective of that shouldn't be our concern then, because we don't outlaw all the shit that's killing millions of people from heart attacks. That's perfectly legal to feed to your children. You just walk in and pay for it. Every street corner. So our concern is really the fertility with teens, but by decriminalizing these things, teens aren't going to get them at any higher of a rate now. All we're going to do is, we need education programs for teenagers. That's what we need, to teach them the real risk of using these and not to use them as teenagers. Remind them their balls are going to shrink. Remind them their dick might not work without staying on testosterone for the rest of their life. That's the things that we need to remind these teenagers of. That's what we need to remind them of, that they're going to become dependent upon these things permanently, potentially, if they use them. But to keep them at the level of criminalization that we do is what causes events like this, because we're so concerned with teens getting a hold of them when they can get them everywhere. We can get them everywhere. The Iron Addicts Miami gym was just busted for doing $10 million in sales. All right, $10 million in anabolic steroid sales. That's a lot of drugs. That stuff is everywhere. You're not going to make it go away. But by at least decriminalizing it, at least people will have access to cleaner substances. And people, this is not the same thing that people are thinking of with junkies and drug addicts. These are people who are leading healthy lifestyles who just want to gain a little more muscle. All right, this is not the same thing as people who are hooked on heroin and other stuff. You're dealing with something totally separate. And most of the risk associated with it are from contaminated, dirty black market products. If you decriminalize it and give easier legal access, and people will have to pay for that quality product, you're actually going to reduce the harm that these products cause, because everyone can get them anyways. They're not that expensive. They're cheap and they're everywhere. Teenagers are going to use them unless you educate them on it. Decriminalizing it is not going to increase their use at all. They already have them at every single gym. But at least you're not going to have situations happen like this to where a young man takes a bunch of steroids and doesn't realize they're full of morphine and he overdoses on morphine. Or it's an unsterile, dirty product that they inject and get a major abscess. Or it has toxins or contaminants in it that build up heavy metals in their body because of the unsterile conditions in which they're made. That's kind of the valid argument we could make for decriminalizing these things. Because accidents like this, tragedies like this that happened to this young man who did this because, again, he simply didn't have the guidance in life that he needed. He thought he was doing something healthy. He thought he was doing something productive. But ultimately, had he actually been taking the substances that he thought he was taking, had he got them from a legitimate clinic, a legitimate pharmacy, made under pharmacy-grade conditions, instead of getting what he actually got mixed in, a contaminated product, a spike product, he'd be alive today right now. The black market component of it is our real concern here. That's the real danger of anabolics. And the way that the legality that we have of them right now is doing, in my opinion, my personal opinion only, is doing more harm than good. Alright guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.